folks, and thanks for joining us for another edition of All 90s Action All the Time, as we sadly near the end of our Seagal journey. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Murphy, and today we will be looking at 1997's Fire Down Below. As always, I'm not alone talking about this film. No, alongside me is screenwriter, podcaster, and environmental Zen warrior, Mr. Kyle Hintz.
Good to be here. And
also we've got fellow screenwriter, podcaster, and a man who is not at all sad that the Seagal journey has nearly ended, Mr. Craig Draheim.
Thanks for having me.
One more time with enthusiasm, Craig.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
That's more like it. That's the attitude we want. So, as always, before we dive into this one, I had some background details for you. So, Fire Down Below was directed by Felix Enriquez Alcala, who this was his feature directorial debut, although he had done a lot of television before this, and he would do a lot of television after it. He's really not done many other feature films, although he can't be a bad director because he does seem to be in demand, and he has worked on numerous shows, including Dollhouse, Battlestar Galactica, The Good Wife, Criminal Minds, ER, whole load of shit. And the film was written by Jeb Stewart, whose notable credits include, wait for it, Die Hard and The Fugitive. So some quality credits there. And it was also written by Philip Morton, who doesn't have quality credits. Literally everything else he's written, I've not heard of. He wrote a horror movie called The Unwilling. He's wrote something called Real Gangsters, which starred our old pal Nick Mancuso, who you will know as CIA agent Tom Breaker. But yeah, and apparently it was originally written by Jeb Stewart as a kind of drama with kind of detective elements as a Bruce Willis project, but and then it was rewritten by Philip Morton when Seagal came onto the film. So yeah, I don't know what the original kind of script would have looked like. I don't know how much to blame Mr. Jeb Stewart. Anyway, in terms of reviews for the film, it's not great. So it currently holds a 5.1 on IMDb, 40 on Metacritic based on 13 reviews, 11% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 27 reviews, and a 2.2 on Letterboxd. And as well as the negative reviews, it didn't do so great at the box office, making only $24.5 million off a $42 million budget. And not only that, it was also nominated for 4 Razzies for Worst Picture, Worst Actor, Worst Screen Couple, not the coupledom between Seagal and his co-star Marta Helgenberg, but it says the nomination was to Seagal and his guitar. So that was I thought that was quite funny, and it was also nominated for Worst Original Song. Like, can you guess what it lost to in Worst Picture and Worst Actor?
97.
97. We've talked about this film before on the podcast. It randomly came up in the previous episode.
Oh, man. I can't remember. I don't know.
It was, of course, The Postman. It lost to The Postman. And in Worst Actor, he lost to Kevin Costner in The Postman. And yes, as we discussed in the previous episode about Brian Hegelin's eventful 1997, where he won Best Screenplay at the Oscars for LA Confidential, and also won Worst Screenplay for The Postman at the Razzies. So there you go.
I have to say, over time, I think The Postman is probably better I think the Razzies got
I've
that.
not
yeah.
rewatched The Postman, so I cannot confirm nor deny that.
I haven't rewatched The Postman either, and I can confirm that.
Like we will talk about this film as always. We'll break down the plot of this film, but just on the side note on The Postman, like much like next week's film, the Patriot. All I remember about The Postman is it being real boring. Like not much happening for a kind of dystopian movie. It's like not a whole lot there. That's why I remember. Like I honestly don't really remember much about The Postman, but I remember being quite bored.
Yeah, I agree. That's
Same.
I mean, that's what I remember. But it was when Costner was going through his attempting to make like a Mad Max kind of.
Yeah, no, that's
same with
that's
Waterworld.
But like Waterworld's entertaining.
Yeah.
Like for all the flaws that Waterworld has, it's an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we're not here to talk about Kevin Costner. We might talk about Kevin Costner in another season, and we can talk about Waterworld, and we can talk about The Postman at that time. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Fire Down Below. So, Craig, do you want to kick us off? Tell us how Fire Down Below begins.
So it begins with Seagal in a plane, just one of those like two-seaters, and he's flying over beautiful landscape, which is a common trait that I've seen at least. And
it is.
As he's flying, he's getting flashbacks that kind of give into what his assignment is and why he's going to this Appalachia town where his buddy, who you kind of see was his good friend, and I guess through just the same scene repeated about 3 times, the same flashback.
Also, there is a flashback that he literally says, "I appreciate your friendship."
Yeah.
Yes. So good.
And then it turns out
possibly a little on the nose, but you know,
that his best friend died by some circumstances, and all of these, and a couple agents have been killed too, and he's being assigned to go check it out, and they already know the cause, but they just need Seagal to confirm it. Is that
he's got to get a witness?
Yeah, he's going to get firm evidence so they can prosecute.
Yeah, there's a wealthy man which we'll get into, who is dumping basically toxic chemicals into the mines, and it's going to soon get into the water, or it has it already. But he's in there to go undercover, work with the preacher.
Yeah,
I guess. But it feels that opening feels like, oddly enough, even though it's giving us the information without having an actual scene, which it basically is an actual scene in itself anyways, but it feels like a sequel element, like where it's giving us these characters that treats it like we should already know who they are, these little side characters of like, oh yeah, that's agent blah 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 who is his boss and his supervisor and telling him to do this. He was in the last one, but there wasn't a last one. Oh
yeah, so it turns out this is another common theme with Seagal's Warner Brothers output, because there was some kind of executive recutting, re-editing of other movies that he's done. Like we talked about it last time in The Glimmer Man, there's some scenes taken out of that, some action set pieces and stuff like that. Hard to Kill and Out for Justice were the same. They both had like longer run times, and there was kind of backstories and characters who were given more stories, more background in those films as well. That was cut out because they wanted a skippier runtime and to make it feel more like a Seagal flick. And apparently that's kind of what happened here as well. This was the kind of flashbacks that you see would have been like the opening kind of like 15 minutes of the movie or whatever, where we established the relationship between Seagal's character, Jack Taggart, and his partner, Frank. The bit where he says like, "Oh, I appreciate your friendship." That's like at the end of a mission, and there was supposed to be an action sequence there. And so, but then, yeah, in the final cut of the film, they decided to completely re-edit the opening sequence of the film, and that's what we've got. And they've condensed it down to just like a couple of minutes while he's on this plane ride looking down at the lovely Appalachian landscape as he gets these black and white flashbacks. So that was an executive decision from Warner Brothers.
And you can feel it in the story. It just doesn't, it doesn't make sense fully. I mean, it's enough information to get by, but it just feels off.
Yeah. Apparently there's a few cuts like that. Apparently I'll talk about one of them later. Apparently there was a car chase sequence that was cut out of the movie. There was a car chase at night or something. And there was a few other things. Although entertainingly, there is some deleted scenes and alternate cuts of things that are still in the trailer. I know that quite often happens, that things will get re-edited, and but they're like, oh, why is that in the trailer? And it actually happened with Hard to Kill as well, because there's like a kind of funeral scene in Hard to Kill in the trailer that was in the original cut of the movie. That's not in the final cut of the film as well. Yes, where do we go from here, Kyle?
Well, we arrive in whatever the name of the town is. I don't know if it was named.
No, I think it's Jackson. Is it Jackson?
Okay,
yeah,
Kentucky?
it's Jackson.
Yeah, and Seagal meets the local preacher, played by Levon Helm of the band, which I didn't really recognize him until I saw that was him in the credits. And they strike up some kind of deal that he tells them, these people don't like to talk. You have to take it easy. So Seagal is going to go around just pretending to be a handyman who fixes their porches out of the goodness of his heart.
Yeah, he's a carpenter, just like Jesus. He's a Jesus figure in the film.
Exactly.
He's an undercover carpenter. I mean, I know, I'm going to do a Craig here and try and bear logic onto the film, but I've watched this film a few times over the years, and every time I watch it, I'm like, do the EPA really have undercover agents? Are there EPA agents who go undercover who are armed? I'm not sure I don't think they do that.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Well, on top of that, it's no one knows who you are, so you don't have to be undercover. You just don't tell people who you are.
That's a fair point.
First of all, I want to say, going back to that,
oh, here we go.
I like how that's become the trope for me. It's like, oh no, Craig's the logic guy for these movies.
Craig sat down and he done thought about the plot.
Oh no, man, no. I mean, thinking about the plot, I was thinking about this earlier today. Thinking about the plot logic of a Seagal film is like thinking about the geography of the Marvel universe, which it doesn't make any sense. If you start, it doesn't make any sense that any Marvel superhero has a solo adventure when you think about the geography of the Marvel universe. How so many of those characters live in New York. And how, Spider-Man lives in Manhattan, Iron Man lives in Manhattan, Fantastic Four live in Manhattan, X-Men are upstate New York, Luke Cage, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist all live within because I remember some guy did a Marvel map of where they're they live. Those four characters, the Defenders live within 3 blocks of each other of Hell's Kitchen. How dangerous is Hell's Kitchen? That's what it's like. That is what it's the equivalent of, I think.
Yeah,
this is true.
I agree with that.
Anyway, we should probably move on with the film and its completely accurate portrayal of country folk.
Yeah. Which we do get a Seagal, I don't know, because he tries very early on, and it pops up occasionally, and then even mid-line he'll get rid of it. He tries his southern accent. It's a couple of times.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's another one of our tropes, which is Seagal kind of assimilating to some other subculture.
Yes. Yeah, he does this kind of accent osmosis thing where he starts kind of vaguely imitating whoever he's kind of across from. So yeah, it's a weird thing. It's he even because Kyle's seen this as well. He even does it in the reality TV show he does, the Steven Seagal Lawman, where he does this dodgy Cajun thing, and it's like,
dude, it's the best part of that show. I mean, he does it with all ethnicities too. So you'll just see him, like talking to, it's you have to watch it.
I mean, he's a chameleon of an actor. That's why he just goes with anybody who
he can't help it.
Yeah. But
so what I was gonna say is that so the preacher is assigning him, having him go help people that he says he thinks will talk, or that will be most likely to talk.
Helpful. Yeah.
But then it comes up later that was a lie to save Seagal. But I guess, I don't know. It's kind of just thrown out there really quickly. But that's, so all of these characters that Seagal is asking to fix their roofs or their porches or whatever they may be are supposed to be the ones that are willing to be witnesses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But this is also, it's established as a mining town or whatever. So they're the main economic power. So everyone is intimidated and scared and whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And we should point out that these kind of hillbilly kind of folk are like outrageously cartoonish. Like the first family we see, he goes in, Seagal, his character, goes in to visit this family. He starts talking to the son of the family who's like ill. And then like the mom comes in, this emaciated woman. And then the father comes in and he's just like covered in soot from just back from the mine. It's just like...
I was going to say part of the opening was like that montage of photos of like old miners.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's
like they used that as a basis for like the costume design and stuff.
Oh, yeah, because I mean, like in that, like, because they're dressed in like modern clothes. Like later on when we see them, they look kind of... when we see them at the kind of church picnic and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, like this is like, they're dressed as if they are from like Depression era, like 1931, kind of like in this shack.
That's because Seagal came and brought modern life to them.
Yes.
Oh, dear. Yeah, we still got a lot of movie to talk about, so we should probably move on.
To kind of cover all of, I guess, in one big blurb. But yeah, they reference Deliverance, of course. There's like, the caricature element of the hillbillies is, very evident. And it's said straightforward, so...
We do get like a short scene directly after that scene where he's in the family, where we first see Harry Dean Stanton. And as I have personally been keeping account of Twin Peaks connections to Steven Seagal films in the last few episodes, Harry Dean Stanton, not in the original Twin Peaks, but he was in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and he was in season 3 Twin Peaks The Return. So more Twin Peaks connections. I think maybe I'm the only person interested in this. If any listeners are interested in me trying to make connections between the Steven Seagal universe and the Twin Peaks universe, please do write in. But like, it might be just me being amused by this.
And they are the same level of coherency in terms of their... Maybe that's why.
you think it's deliberate in some way. That's amazing.
Well, Harry Dean Stanton even brings up fried taters for there's a Sling Blade reference.
For,
and
anybody that knows the movie.
And he's basically doing kind of Sling Blade light, but it's Harry Dean Stanton, so he's still good. He comes out clean.
Yeah, for sure. I like Harry Dean Stanton is like he's just a good actor. He's just he just does his stuff. He does his thing, and he comes out of this unscathed. I don't think anybody's like too badly scathed in this movie, to be fair.
True. Yeah.
Like any of the kind of known names, I don't think anybody's like, oh man, they really tarnished their reputation in this one. I mean, like by being in it, maybe, but like but their performances, and nobody disgraces themselves. I don't think really, in the kind of name kind of actors. But yeah, in the Harry Dean Stanton, where we first see his character introduction, we get like that typical suave Seagal as he sleazies on the locals. The twins who staff the lumber yard, who are played by the daughters of Loretta Lynn, Peggy and Patsy Lynn. Yeah.
Ah.
There's loads of country music star cameos in this movie. It's ridiculous. I don't know a great deal about country music, but I've looked into all the kind of country music stars who are in this film, and it's a lot.
Yeah, I knew there was a ton. I actually, as I was watching it last night, I went, I don't know, Google diving and found myself then being like, I wonder if there was experimental country. Is that a thing? And
there kind of is, yeah.
An hour later, as the movie...
enter crust punks who follow Hank Williams III around.
Yeah.
I don't even really know who he is, but yeah. But that's off topic.
Yeah, that is off topic. You know, we've got a lot of typical Seagal weirdness to get through. We can't be sitting debating the Hank 3, you know.
But it does really bring up.
I do want to say though, like his music is actually quite good. So if you want to check some Hank 3 out, you know, do listener. Yeah. But anyway, Craig, on with the movie.
Oh, yes. So I was going to say, in these scenes, what I've noticed is that as kind of the budget has dropped and even some of the quality elements, I feel like Seagal is at least, it again, as in the Glimmerman or whatever, it doesn't work, but it feels like he's attempting to do more acting. There's a lot of points in this one where he's trying to be like chit-chatty and jokey, not actual the making of jokes, but like being social with, you know, acting like a human being would interact with other people, I guess, is what I'm saying he's attempting to do.
I will say, actually, I don't often say this, but in Seagal's defense, as we'll get to it, this is the one and only time I've seen in a Seagal movie that he has something resembling a semi-believable romance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It helps that she's like accused of a crime as a child, or as a teenager, and she has some things going against her.
That is
nobody
true.
in town will talk to her.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So, yes, you mentioned, Craig, that there's a deliverance gag, and that deliverance gag comes in the next scene where Seagal is doing this thing, trying to collect evidence, and then there's a kid peeing on the kind of waterfall that he's collecting evidence from, and then he's like, "Hey, you kid," and then chases after him for
no reason.
For no reason.
Yeah.
And then there's a random scene where he comes across a bunch of hillbilly marijuana farmers. Again, this just feels like it's really shoehorned in just for an action beat, because these characters do not come up again, and
nope.
There's literally no point to this scene, but we do get some kind of lame deliverance gags, and so there we go.
And he gives the kid the gun at the end. He just gives the little kid a gun and tells him to point it at them.
Yeah, after he took the bullets out, as if those guys aren't gonna beat that kid.
Yeah, apparently, because Seagal has magic converting powers, where he can turn evil guys into good guys. So once Seagal has given them a beating, they've probably changed their life around by now. Also, in terms of favorite Seagal tropes, we get an excellent use of ADR, where you hear the guy going "Oh, my jaw! He broke my jaw!"
There's a lot of, I realized in this one too, a lot of face smashing. Some guy gets his teeth broken out, and he smashes a lot of people's faces into. Yeah,
he does right near the end of this film. Yeah, that happens. But this is after beating up those guys in a completely pointless scene. We have some good old Southern hospitality as we have our first encounter with Sarah, played by Marge Helgenberger.
CSI, in case, or Species, depending on.
Yes. Also, props, this movie does get a bonus point for having a relationship that is age appropriate. Marge Hillenberger, only 6 years younger than Seagal, which is not often the case in action movies or Seagal films. So, well done, movie.
And nobody wants to talk to her, and she even acknowledges it because of something that happened with her father that we don't know yet, but kind of comes up, kind of doesn't. But yeah, and then the preacher even and other townspeople, even though they said nobody in town will talk to her, there's a lot of people that actually are willing, that are friendly and talk to her. So that's what I'm not sure about. But yeah, but Seagal, he doesn't care because he's above all that town gossip.
Yeah, he can see deep down she's a good person because Seagal has those magic investigative Sherlock powers that like he just knows stuff.
And he offers to fix her porch, which should be subtext.
But it's not. It's because he offers to fix everybody's porch. Like,
but he's gonna fix her porch real nice.
Yeah,
for sure. But like, yeah, but then he offers Harry Dean Stanton the same way, you know. So like,
yeah. There's even a thing with Harry Dean Stanton that jokes. Well,
oh yeah, like
later, but
later.
Yeah,
he has like just after this, he has a weird conversation with Harry Dean Stanton where he's driving around in a truck and he's offers Harry Dean Stanton a lift in his truck, and then like he says something about like Harry Dean Stanton doesn't want to get in his truck, and he says something, and then Seagal kind of philosophically is like, yes, it's like a Zen riddle. And
because
he wants to.
He says that. Yeah, he says he doesn't want to get in the truck because he might like being in a truck and have to buy one of his own, and he wants to move, but so he doesn't want to get his house fixed, but he needs his house fixed.
Yeah, that's right. Which is like a Zen riddle.
Yeah, is it?
I mean, Seagal says so it must be the truth.
Why not?
I guess.
I should have looked up Zen riddles.
But we are. I mean, we hear all 90s action all the time. We don't know shit about Zen riddles. So like, who knows? Maybe it is like a Zen riddle. Anyway,
leave a review. Let us know.
Leave a review. Tell us more about Zen riddles. Yeah, do that.
Leave a review in the form of a Zen riddle.
That would be the best. Please do that, listener. If there is somebody out there listening who is very knowledgeable about Zen riddles, then please do that. But we keep kind of going off track in this one. So Kyle, you want to tell us more about the film? What's happening in the film?
We meet the thugs, right? Like,
yes, Hatch and Sims, I think, is their names. The two main thugs that we kind of follow around.
Is this the point where they put a snake in Seagal's room?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And do we even see Seagal capture the snakes?
Yeah, he gets
we see
the two snakes or whatever.
Yeah. So he wakes up, like Seagal obviously sleeps with a gun under his pillow. So he wakes up, he takes his gun out, and the thugs are driving away, and then he discovers the snakes, and then we see him pick the snakes up, and unlike Jean-Claude Van Damme, doesn't punch the snake. He just just places them outside the window, and that's that.
Because he's an EPA agent, he doesn't believe anything.
But then we pick up with those thugs driving their truck, right? With the snakes and the floorboard.
Yes. That's right. And what's magic about that is like this is one of many, I think 4 songs that are co-written by Seagal in the movie. But it's like super on the nose pop explainers, and the song's called "Snake in the Grass." And the song kicks in slightly before the guys go back into the truck and they discover the snakes in the car, and like you know that's going to happen because like there is a type of snake like mentioned in the song. You're like, oh, that's like a type of snake, and then you're like, oh, I see what's going on here. The snakes are going to be in the truck. Oh, that's exactly what's going on here. And the snake in the grass. Yeah, like, and then they crash their truck.
Yeah,
there is another moment as well where that happens, where it's like a kind of. This is going to exactly mirror, this song is going to exactly mirror what's going in the plot in a really on-the-nose way. It's very fun.
And the sheriff, he doesn't like Seagal at all. And so isn't that one of the many scenes where he comes and he basically wants to arrest?
That is one of the many scenes.
Even though there's no evidence of Seagal putting a snake
he
in
just
the truck
doesn't.
or anything.
He just doesn't like the cut of his jib. He doesn't like the look of him. That is also one of the many country music stars. The sheriff is called Lloyd, and it's played by a guy called Ed Bruce, who was a country music star. There you go. But anyway, tell us more, Craig. Tell us more of what's happening now.
So after he meets the sheriff and all of them, is that when he actually talks to Harry Dean Stanton?
Well, we get our first introduction of Orin Sr.
Okay.
Played by Kris Kristofferson, who is the kind of, he's sort of the main villain of the film. He kind of orders things to happen, but he doesn't intervene directly.
Yeah, and most of it he's not in that town. He's just he's dictating to his son, Orin Jr., who's, I guess, the point man in the town.
Yes. And we kind of established that he's like a kind of sleazy rich asshole because he is sleazy to his secretary, maybe? And also like when his receptionist tells him there's somebody on the phone, he says, tell them I'm busy. And then when it says it's his son, he says, tell him I'm out the country. So obviously not a good dad either.
Well, to be fair, his son is kind of a douchebag.
I mean, he is. But
look at his dad.
To be fair, you probably grow up to be a douchebag if you've been constantly belittled and all your life. And then we get more of this classic romance after that.
Yeah. Because this is when we get into the store. Because there's so much of this to me that there's like all these little scenes that cut back and forth of the romance that I think get all jumbled, but where he sees her, so she sells honey that he comes when he's asking her beforehand if she wants her porch fixed, and she's going to the store to get groceries, and the guy says, we only sold a couple jars of your honey, you can put that towards your groceries, and she has to put basically away most of the stuff she grabbed to feed herself. She puts to the side, which Seagal decides to then buy all of the groceries after she leaves, buy all the groceries that she didn't buy, and then all of her jars of honey, because the shopkeeper, who again in this town where nobody is supposed to be talking to her, he feels for her, and it makes him happy that Seagal is just being so nice and doing this just for her, at least, in some way or another.
Yeah. But then he's immediately, after that kind of heartwarming moment where he's like, oh, this is so heartwarming, then he just becomes confused. He's like, oh, what's a guy like you going to do with all that honey? And I really wanted there to be an answer.
Yes.
I wanted Seagal to come up with an explanation.
Or to just like slather a henchman in honey or something stupid and then release bees on him.
Yeah, because the honey never, it pops. You see the jars of honey in his truck in the next scene, but besides that, it's like not even a thing. So what happened to the honey? It's the biggest question of this movie.
Yeah. Oh, this next scene is where the next like plot explainer song comes up, because it's like he's talking to like Sarah and he's saying like, oh, isn't it funny, like the earth burning over there, like the coal mines burning, and like you can see the smoke coming up from the land and that, and then like they're driving in the car and it's like this song is like called like some like fire in the hole or something, or like and it's just again just another great moment where Seagal writes a really on the nose song.
They should have at least even took reference, or they should have noticed it, like in what was that one, the basketball or whatever, where there's that song playing.
Oh yeah.
And he recognizes that it's just like verbatim what's happening to him.
Yes,
Basketball was also, I think, 97. So there we go.
I think so. I think you may be right there. Yeah. So I again, like, you know, I mean, we have established to you, Craig, that like Seagal doesn't have any faculty for irony. So like, it's not what's going on here at all. But after that, like we can kind of, there's more kind of hammy Hallmark romance kind of going on. He drops her off, you know, like we can kind of skip over. But like, next up is like one of my favorite bits in the movie. It's the fight down at the lumberyard, where we get Hatch and Sims like kind of menacing Seagal again. And what happens to them, Kyle?
They get beat up, man. I had to notice that like Seagal was buying very small, weird little pieces of lumber to like fix the porch. Yeah, that's my logic thing. But then he beats Hatch and Sims, and then just like the random 7 lumberyard guys who are just like spoiling for a fight at all times with like a big like wooden stick. And then we get, and I mean, you can jump in here with your particular favorite moments, but then we get the sheriff again, who's like going to take him in for assault. And then the preacher is there. So he witnesses, it was in self-defense, and none of those guys want to press charges.
Yeah. I think it like, for one, I think it's just like a kind of fun kind of martial art type moment. I think his stick work's quite good. Also, like, what becomes a running joke, like I think it's Sims, he smashes in the nose, and Sims is played by a country music singer called Alex Harvey, who is not to be confused with Alex Harvey of the sensational Alex Harvey Band, and is confused on IMDb with Alex Harvey of the sensational Alex Harvey Band, because that is the picture on IMDb next to this credit. So like, you know, like maybe somebody should sort that out. Like the estate of Alex Harvey should maybe rectify that, because I was confused, because I was like, Alex. Like that Alex, like sensational, and it's like, no, there was a country music singer, it's a totally different guy. So like, anyway, he gets smashed in the nose. I think that's quite fun. Also, there's another great moment of ADR in this scene where one of the guys he beats like one of the guys he beats up with a stick is like lying on the ground, and then you hear a disembodied voice just say, "I've never been hit so hard in my life." So he's, you know, like Seagal's such a badass. And like also, like my other favorite moment is when he chips the stick and he's like, "Oh, you've kind of fucked up my lumber. Oh, I'm just going to use my hands." He wallops, punches a guy and stuff. So yeah, for those reasons, I think it's a fun fight. Like obviously, I'm sailing on a boat on my own here. So we'll move on. We'll move on. I had more fun with that than anybody else.
No, I mean, I think it's definitely, that's what this one, where the other ones, I think, at least from what I've seen, are more, I don't know, even with Limmerman, it's like there's the progression and the fights throughout. This one, it feels very much like like you were even talking about, a Hallmark romance for 5 minutes, fight, a little bit of information, back to some romance stuff, fight. It's like it kind of goes on this repetition.
Yeah, for sure. Because like directly after the lumberyard, like we had a little conversation with the Reverend, and then we go back to kind of romance, and like
that's when he has dinner with her, and then we meet her brother, right?
Yes, I believe. Yeah,
Earl,
played by Stephen Lang, who's
great Stephen Lang.
Yeah. Like and it's he's like obviously, I mean, we're going to spoil things here, but Stephen Lang is a villain in this film, and but he, like, but it's really signposted that he's a villain like really early on because like everything he says is so weird and passive aggressive.
Yeah, but there are moments that seem like they're setting up again for spoil purposes, but it seems like they're setting up that he's going to become like he's going to have an arc and become a better person, or that, like, I don't know. There's other points where like maybe he's not the real villain. He's just being led by the wrong
wrong crowd.
No.
Yeah.
But no, not at all. He's he's a villain.
Yeah, he is. Oh, yeah, like slightly before this, like there is another kind of building the romance kind of scene slightly before this kind of big date, like where they arrange the dinner, and like the only reason I want to mention that scene because like is it's weird. It's like this weird conversation where she's like tending her bees and he's standing at like her house, and it feels like the scene wasn't filmed together. It just like cuts back and forth, and like the conversation just doesn't match up at all. That's the only reason to mention that. Like in terms of like, there's nothing interesting that happens in the scene. Basically, they just arrange a date and they get some more information of like who this character is, or whatever. But it's just a weird. This is a weird scene.
It starts because she says that, well, you're fixing my porch. I need to give you some, or I need to pay you in some way. Come over for dinner later.
Yeah. And also, like, again, slightly before the big date, there is a couple of things that do happen plot-wise. So, like, Seagal, he reveals his cover to Harry Dean Stanton. And then... Because
Harry Dean Stanton also reveals that he's the one
who sent the letter at the start of the movie.
Yes. Which I feel like they didn't really do a good job of telling us there was a letter. Like, I didn't even know.
No, I did. Yeah, I didn't know.
No, they really don't. Like, because I was I've seen this movie a few times, and like again, I was like, letter. All right, is that what they were talking about? Like the agents and the flashbacks? Like, okay, yeah, there was a letter. Okay, yeah, for sure.
Because Harry Dean Stanton, that's when he gets out of the truck, and then Hatch and Sim.
Yes, Hatch and Sim, who are like our main. We also, what has become a running theme that I hadn't really noticed before, like doing this series and like rewatching, is like so many of the henchmen in these movies are like relatively unthreatening looking middle-aged guys who have obviously been a henchman for about 20 to 30 years. Like this is not the first flush of their henchdom youth, No.
There's just not a great pool of henchmen in Jackson. Just out of work miners.
Yeah, for it is. And yes, this is where it's kind of like the kind of joke about like, oh, is that your boyfriend dropping you off kind of thing is made.
Yeah. And then they're about to beat him up, is all you know. Or they're going to do something to him.
Oh, yeah, they're just kind of menacing him at that point, and you assume that he's going to beat him up, but like, it cuts away, and then it cuts away to the big date after that. Also, like in between all this, there's a little bit more from Orin Sr., where Orin Jr. has been like, oh, this guy, after the lumberjack fighting that, he's like, oh, this guy's been giving us more trouble, and again, like, Kyle, you would have grown up to be a douchebag if your dad was saying lines like this to you.
I mean,
you couldn't take out a cheeseburger from a drive-through window.
It's a great line.
It is a great line. That's why I had to write it down. I was like, Jesus, this guy really hates his son.
Yeah, and his son hasn't been doing that bad a job.
Like, yeah, up until Jack Taggart swaggered into town, it seems like the cover-up has been, going well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then, like we said, the kind of the big date happens. Stephen Lang is introduced, and he's kind of this schizophrenic, kind of weird, passive-aggressive delivery to all his dialogue, and he's clearly He's not established as being evil in this scene, but he is clearly established as somebody who has been gaslighting his sister for many years.
Yeah. And
we get that right after Seagal leaves too, basically.
Yeah.
Where he aggressively eats some of her pecan pie.
And that's what okay. Well, that it's going to be a major spoil, so I'll wait until we get to that point. But the way they interact with each other doesn't, in this scene, suggest something, but doesn't suggest the history that they have with one another, I guess.
Well, and it does kind of seem like if that were the case, Lang would be even more, he would be less passive aggressive and probably just be outright aggressive to Seagal, you know?
Yeah, he'd be way more controlling, I think, of her.
Yeah.
Or something, I don't know.
But that kind of logic just isn't going to be brought to bear on this movie.
Yeah. Character
not at all.
It's not a thing.
Not at all. But anyway, on to more action.
Yes.
Also, we get a classic Seagal move as in the kind of doctor's surgery. He just shouts at the people, you know what's happening here.
Oh, yeah.
So he finds Harry Dean Stanton, right, who is apparently beaten within an inch of his life, even though he only has a little bit of a bloody nose and something.
Yeah, a few scratches on his face. But yes, if they had found him any later, could have died. But even though the beating doesn't look that bad,
he
continue,
brings
Craig.
him in. He brings him in, says this, and then the cops come and then are like, "Oh, you're the one who did it." This shows Seagal is the worst undercover agent because he blows his cover instantly. And it's not even that far into the movie of saying, well, you know who I am, or I know who you are, and you know who I am, and I can arrest you just as easily. To which then he beats all the cops as an EP agent and then shoves a gun in one of the cops' mouths.
Mm. And then he has that weird, proctological...
Yeah.
Thing.
Oh yes, I can have 300 agents come upon this hick town and search be up in every orifice, and then you can pick out your favorite proctologist to cure whatever hole hurts the most. Is something akin to what the line is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So since this cover is blown, it kind of changes the dynamics of the movie.
Which leads you to... No. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole because it does lead to the inevitable question of why he was undercover in the first place.
Yes.
Which we can only assume was answered in whatever footage is on the cutting room floor.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe in the it's an original draft thing. Maybe it wasn't EPA initially. I don't know.
Yeah, but it would have to be, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously an EPA agent in I'm sure in the original thing, the more dramatic one, it's less of a detective story, less of a badass.
Yeah, so from my understanding of the little bit of background research I did into this movie, yes, it's more of a dramatic film. There's less action sequences and it's more proper kind of detective work. Is more of a kind of mystery, of gathering evidence and stuff like that. So there's less kind of beating everybody up and stuff like that, and more kind of trying to... I think it sounds like it's more like a kind of conspiracy thriller.
Because, during the 90s, there were a lot, not even including the Seagal ones, but you have the Val Kilmer Thunderheart with about the reservation. There was a lot of kind of more environmentally based drama, action, thriller. I know that there was the one with Travolta and the water poison. Or was that 90s?
Oh, yeah. I don't know when that was.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But it seems like there was a lot of movies that involved poisoning of water around that time.
I think what Seagal noticed was there was a lot of environmental films, but not enough ass kicking.
Yeah.
In those films.
He should have had a fight with the poisonous water. That would have been...
Yes. Yes. Or just him kicking open those barrels of toxic waste.
Oh, no, we'll get to the barrels. Let's not spoil that. That's so fun.
That's
we'll get to the barrels of toxic waste later. Oh dear.
So after going back to this movie, after his identity is revealed, then Sarah is upset and calls it betrayal because he was, as undercover.
Yeah, because of his undercover acting skills.
Yeah. And he says that he did want to fix her porch and he did want to learn about her, which adds that romance bit to it. But she's still a little upset and has to leave.
Yeah, she feels betrayed for all of 2 seconds. Like, she's back on side like 2 scenes later.
Yeah. And that's when the preacher, doesn't he kind of join on and say, okay, I will be a witness as well now?
No.
Or is that later? That's later.
Well, I mean, it's very soon. But before we get to that, I think I've written in my notes more fun with Orin Sr. So I think that was where he's playing golf in the casino while also sleazing on a woman and drinking champagne. Again, just being a dick. And he basically his son is the hole for the golf. Like, he's got his feet splayed, and then he throws money at him and says, "That's your allowance." Like, again, Kyle. You're not going to grow up to be a good person.
Yeah, you're right. I internalized all this trauma. I don't even remember this scene.
Everything with Orin Sr. is just washed over me. Oh yeah,
okay.
He was in it.
He is
too close to home.
Yeah, he's. I think he's he's kind of entertainingly just he's so douchey. He's such I suppose he's that kind of typical kind of rich douchebag in a movie kind of character. But yeah, I think he stood out for me more, and maybe I was less traumatized.
Side note, if my father ever listens to this, he is a very supportive parent.
We all have good dads on this podcast. We all have good dads. Yeah. We just want to reassure all the listeners. It's all good. Well, Kyle hasn't actually confirmed that. Kyle?
No, he is pretty supportive.
Oh, cool. We do all have good dads on this podcast. It's all good. There's no trauma here. But no, we can't skip to the Reverend testifying because we'll then jump over where the budget of this movie went, which is obviously on the big truck chase.
Oh yeah, that's why
this memorable action scene that my co-hosts have just remembered.
It's done pretty well.
No, I remember it. I just, again, like I was saying, any of the romance stuff.
Okay.
It all kind of again jumbles together, so it's I remember the actions. But no, the car chase is actually decent enough. There's some points where you're wondering how a semi can be, or whatever it's a giant truck.
It's a giant truck, yeah.
Be maneuvering the way it is, especially flying into a cornfield and then somehow be able to get right back on the road so easily. But
and how his old truck can outrun it, because I just assume that truck can't go that fast.
Yeah, but again, logic, and I guess we're
not gonna
cut that out.
Yeah, but it is fun how it ends, where Seagal gets out his pickup and plays chicken with this massive lorry, and then gets out of the way at the last second.
Yeah,
and then it falls down the cliff. Yeah, which is and then they obviously really like that shot because it you really get a lot of that falling down the cliff and the bursting into flames. So I feel like a lot of the budget went on that scene.
Yeah, so you need to get at least enough footage of it if you're going to, if that's your money shot.
Sure. But you mentioned, I have just realized, looking at my notes, slightly further on, it says Orin Sr. golf swings to phone. So I can't remember why I wrote more fun with Orin Sr. Previously before the truck chase. So there you go. But as you mentioned, Craig, the Reverend says that he has a change of heart, and he is going to testify. But Kyle, why does he have a change of heart?
Oh, yes. Because he realizes that he can't save the souls of his his people if they're dead. It's the best reasoning ever.
But we should also mention that mirroring on deadly ground, what changes his heart is the sermon that Seagal gives at the church.
Which is very, it was just like, feels like an abridged version of On Deadly Ground's ending speech.
Yeah, because even though town folk, they all know something happened to him, maybe, but he storms up to the podium during.
And you can tell he's been through
service.
an intense truck chase because he has one tiny little scratch at the top of his head.
And what's great about this scene is also that just everybody accepts it. Like, he just walks into the church, says, "I've got something to say." And then, if you don't mind. And then apparently nobody does mind. And then he just says, "Please be seated." Everybody gets seated. It's just like, nobody questions it. Nobody's like, what?
Well, after this point, too, the town kind of, with the exception of the henchmen, the town kind of accepts him officially. I feel like they're less likely to. Yeah, he's now one of the people. Seagal has always been.
Always, yeah.
He has always been a man of the people. Yeah. So and then he just it's one of those things. Much like the On Deadly Ground speech, he makes some like good points, but does it in such a kind of hammy and ridiculous way that you wouldn't actually listen to it, but like he actually in there is the nub of a point about the way rich corporations pay off poor people to look the other way. Nope. Okay.
So we're learning stuff.
Like, it's just, I feel like it's misjudged, but like there is somewhere in there is a good point. It's just because it's Seagal. It's just done.
He's always lacking the subtlety to like.
Yeah.
The movie already gives us that point. It's just
he really hammers it home with this speech. But like that's Seagal for you. Why make your point in any sort of subtle and nuanced way when you can sledgehammer it down your throat? Literally.
I was going to say, when you can throw a guy through a window.
Yeah. When you can throw the point through a window, that's what. Yeah. Anyway, after that, the kind of the towns on side and stuff like that. And then we get some classic Seagal ego stroke as we head to the big dance.
Yep. And it kind of jumps back and forth between, not really. Right before the big dance, we see that the preacher is in the church and somebody is entering, but we don't know who.
That's right.
And then we get to the big old dance where we get to see why Seagal earned that Razzie nomination for relationship.
Best relationship, Seagal and his guitar. This is another cameo from another country music star, Marty Stewart, and yes, so it's actually quite a funny scene, like just because there's this old guy playing guitar who then downs half a bottle of Jim Beam, not advisable, listener, not advisable, and then just falls off his stool. And Seagal kind of sweeps in to save the day with some of his great bluegrass picking.
I
suppose that's the appropriate reaction, Cal. Yes.
Just when you thought Jack Taggart might have limitations, he doesn't.
No, he can do it all. And then we should have mentioned, because I don't know, I feel like Craig has just blanked Orin Sr. out of the movie.
He shows up. Yeah, he shows up in this part to officially meet kind of Seagal, and that's when they get to go face to face. But first off, Seagal has to teach Orin Jr. a lesson. I know, because as Seagal's picking on the sixth string, Orin Jr. is
trying to sleaze on
aggressive
Sarah.
With to which then Seagal makes him apologize by twisting his arm and doing all this, which Orin Sr. just accepts and kind of has a smile on.
What I love about this scene, though, is Seagal, he turns round to Orin Jr. and he basically says, talk talking to a woman like that, like normally a partner would, he basically says like that would get you an ass whipping, but I don't think
it's an insult to the man she's with or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's an insult to the man he's with, but it's not worth it. But then Orin Jr. makes a really childish comment about like, oh, government agent man coming to take out the trash. And then all of a sudden, so the offense of like sleazing on his woman, that's not worth it. But this kind of childish jibe is what makes it worth it. And then he twists his arm and forces Orin Jr. to apologize to Sarah.
I mean, that's just textbook Seagal right there.
It really is. I think it's what makes the scene quite funny.
Yeah. And that's when we get the first meeting of the big brute guy who, again, we think is going to pose a huge threat to Seagal later on. We'll find out, but we know the answer. But
I mean, you've seen a Seagal movie before, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, he insultingly refers to that guy in that later scene as Pimple, and he is credited as Pimple.
But then one of Orin Sr.'s men come up and say that he wants to meet with Seagal to see them meet it out, and kind of that he wants to pay him off, but Seagal doesn't get paid off because you can't pay off blood or whatever the phrase is, that his best friend was killed.
Basically, yes. He basically says if he can bring his best friend back to life and take all of the toxic waste and poison out the water that is in the water, then he would, then he would back off. And not only would he back off, he would be impressed. And you can tell by the way he delivers that line that Jack Taggart is a man who's not easily impressed. And then after that, we get the follow up to the scene with the Reverend, the little cut to the Reverend, as now the church is on fire.
And what was it? So Earl, Stephen Lang, he is saying he knows, or something crazy must have happened. He can't believe these guys are doing it, and he's really, acting distressed. But we know that something's up, and he's involved somehow. And he knows where these guys are at, and he can show Seagal all the evidence because he's not going to be working with them anymore. But then also we're asked what happened to the preacher, and nobody knows except we hear, I think, a scream at one point. Kind of. So we know the preacher's in there burning alive, but nobody's like trying to get him out.
You can just imagine him in the background of the scene being like, please help me. Like, why? You're just having a conversation. I'm here. I can see you. Like, honestly, like I'm near the door. Like if you just, like somebody, nobody. Yeah. So Errol is, he's now turned face. He's like he's helping Seagal out now, or is he? As in the very next scene with Sarah, it turns out he's evil. Surprise! Were you shocked by this, Kyle? That it turned out Stephen Lang was evil.
I was shocked by how on the nose and expository it was.
Yes. And not only that, it really shows that he's evil because he sets the bees on fire, not the bees.
Son of a bitch.
I know that was the worst I felt. I was like, oh man, those poor bees. Just sitting there burning up. That guy's mean.
You didn't care about Harry Dean Stanton being beaten up. You didn't care about the Reverend burning to death. You don't care about any of the henchmen who have had their faces smashed in. But those bees, man, really broke your heart.
Typical Craig.
He's all about the bees, not Craig.
Yeah. Well, they do pollinate the world. We need bees.
It's fair point.
Yeah, okay.
Since we are talking about an environmental movie, it's a fair point, Greg. Well done.
Yeah. But we kind of get that Earl. So Earl is the one that does he admit it about their dad or is it not until
Seagal lays it out later?
I know he does later.
We get that. Yeah, we get the idea that.
Yeah, we kind of get the idea, but then because there's a kind of inclination of something incestuous in that scene. But then we cut to like Earl and Jack Taggart as they're like investigating the mine, and yes,
and he says, "My dad
lays it all out."
Yeah, but first he says before they go on the mine, which was probably my favorite part of what was it when I asked my daddy how far you'd have to go down the hill. He said only about 1.5 miles or something.
Quarter mile.
Yeah, quarter mile. There we go.
He says they have to go 1/4 mile down the mine.
Yeah, there we go.
Which makes me think that his dad and Vin Diesel should meet up sometime, you know.
1/4 mile.
Yeah, they will be in like Fast and the Furious 10.
Yeah. So yes, so like literally, like Kyle, tell us about this Seagal expository scene of like literally. I've written about this scene. How the fuck would Seagal know all that about Earl and Sarah? I mean, like, how did he piece that together from the information he had?
No idea. So the information, just to recap, because it happens in some scene we didn't really point out, but there's a point where like Seagal's like at the library.
He's looking at through all newspapers,
Yeah, and he sees that she had been accused of killing her father and then was acquitted and blah, 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 and that's why she's an outcast. And that's like all he knows. Yeah, and then he just says like, oh, so tell me about your sister. It seems like she's kind of, uncomfortable around men. And he says like, oh, I don't think she got over the murder or being accused of murder. And then Seagal's like, you know what I think? And then lays it all out like that. He thinks that Stephen Lang was molesting her and the father found out about it and was going to do something about it. So Stephen Lang killed the father, but he was an adult. So he gave the gun to his sister and said, just take the rap for me because you're a minor and it won't be that bad. It's very like, it's so involved and complicated. And it's like, how did you know that? And Seagal's just like, well, I read the script.
I know the outline of the plot. Yeah.
Because it's Appalachia, it has to be something about incest.
Exactly,
because hillbillies. And then basically Stephen Lang, and like he has him at gunpoint, and then like a whole bunch of henchmen come on cue, just out of the woodwork, because that's how henchmen work, and then we get an action sequence, lots of gunfire going off, which hits some of the toxic waste canisters, barrels, I should say. And I think this is one of the things that really entertained me about the movie. And possibly it sounds like it might have entertained you, Kyle, as well.
Oh, yeah.
The toxic waste is proper, like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles glow in the dark green, and it's amazing.
And it's like acidically burning henchmen and stuff too.
You feel bad for one of them who's like curled up on the truck and he's just screaming as it's pouring on him.
Yeah, and it also just feels like, it's the coolest part of the movie, especially like I was like, oh man, probably when I saw this as a kid, this was probably the best part, but yeah, it does feel like, who the fuck decided that this should be green? Who made this call?
I don't know, but I do love it for it. Yeah. Because it is proper, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Secret of the Ooze kind of green. It's like, that's amazing. It's really fun stuff. And then Orin Jr. blows up the mine, which Seagal narrowly escapes, of course, and that's the end of Earl. Earl's buried in the rubbery rubble of the mine.
And he goes and tells, Seagal goes to Sarah, and she's pretty okay with the fact that her brother has been killed, and because obviously her brother is a horrible person, not just not just evil, but horrific of what he's done to her, and she's willing to testify, but for some reason all the other people that were willing to testify, she's the one that he wants to get in witness protection before anything worse happens to her, which I know they go to meet an agent, potentially, who is played by, isn't it country singer Randy Travis?
Yeah, country singer Randy Travis, one of the other country singer cameos in the movie.
Yeah, but something feels off because he has a 6-shooter. But Randy Travis, reassures him, well, it's the country. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like Seagal gets in his car, and like I've written in my notes here, Seagal spidey sense tingling.
Yeah. And it's not even Randy Travis, it's the other guy who's sitting in the back seat with her. And he just gets some weird sense about it that maybe these aren't actual agents. Maybe this spidey sense of his should have popped up earlier.
That's a fair point.
But we need more action.
Yeah.
Although I do feel like this is probably one of the scenes that was like cut or like kind of shortened down, because there is a short car chase, but I feel like that was probably like going to be like a longer car chase.
Yeah.
I like some of the elements of this where I think it has some intensity that some of the other fight sequences don't, but where they're going through the diner and shooting, and then I think it works surprisingly well. I'll give it that. And then he shoots through the wall.
I think it's one of the it's one of the best action sequences in the movie. And like you say, it does have like that extra little bit of intensity to it, where like Randy Travis like storms into this diner with Sarah at gunpoint, and all the diners look properly terrified, and then it's just like act normal, and as they sit down, as Seagal then storms in, and it's like well done. Although I did feel like it kind of again is like one of those things that kind of shows off Seagal's demigod superpowers, because it does feel like he can just maybe see through walls, and that's how he accurately shot Randy Travis's character Ken Adams.
Yeah, through a wall, not being able to see him. He only saw the back of Sarah, so he knew the proper amount of distance that it would be.
I didn't even catch that. I don't think. Like I just saw him shooting through a wall, and then I saw Randy Travis mortally wounded falling down, and I didn't put together.
Yeah, and then like the follow-up bit is like one of the few times that I think like Seagal tries to do jokes and it kind of works. Like in the scene where the other agent, who is like bloodied from the car crash, Seagal like throws a flare at the gas pool that is gathered around the crashed car, and the agent guy then dives in like slow motion. It's the kind of hilarious slow motion, and catches the flare, and then he's like, tell your boss. He he basically suggests that he's going to leave him alive. He says like, tell your boss, that I'm after him or whatever, and then he's like, no, on second thoughts, I'll tell him myself. And then he shoots the flare, or part of the flare, and it kind of jumps up into the air. And then he's like, just playing. He shoots it again, which puts the flare out. And then he says, no, stick around. We may have some fun.
Yeah,
actually, kind of works. I thought it was a fun sequence.
No, yeah. I'll agree. Going with kind of all of these Seagal movies, and from starting out being the novice one, I will say there's always one action sequence, it seems to be, within each Seagal movie that is like properly intense and works really well. Not just for the sake of the martial arts, but that you're like, wow, this doesn't fit with the rest of it because it's really well done, and the editing is really well done. Where I know some of the martial arts scenes, especially in this one, the cutting is kind of like a lot. The cutting has some issues with it.
Yes, I think like as Seagal kind of got less and less mobile, it can be less and less arse, like moving around, like they cut around that, like so he's doing less and less movement, and so it looks, they get kind of progressively choppier as as his career goes on. I think because he's definitely more mobile in other earlier movies, and I think this is getting to the stage where he's getting quite lazy, and he's just doing the kind of Aikido hand movements, but like the kind of more energetic stuff. He's just like, ugh, can't be arsed.
Yeah.
So it just leads to this really kind of choppy editing style. So even in the kind of, like I say, I like the lumberyard fight was quite fun, but yeah, even that was kind of choppily edited, and the kind of later fight scenes as well, even with some of the martial arts in it, is quite fun.
Yeah. So this takes us to the point where Sarah, who he wanted to put under witness protection, he then just takes her back to her house. If I remember, it's like a really quick scene.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of feels like so that was all pointless. That just happened before. But
yeah, and and then we get like the kind of investigation kind of wraps up really abruptly there, where suddenly we're kind of in court, and Orin Sr. is getting a fine for dumping toxic waste, which is like amounts to like $50,000 or something, and he's like kind of laughing about it, kind of like, oh, I made $300 million last year, and all I have to pay is $50,000. Ha 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 ha. And then there's a confrontation with Seagal, who says he has quit the APA and is going to make it his life work to make his life, Orin Sr.'s life, a misery. And he says very menacingly he is going to bring a new meaning to the word violation, which kind of gave me a shudder down my spine. I was like, I was genuinely unnerved by the way Seagal delivered that line.
Yeah, but this is kind of when, because he also then goes to his EPA supervisor.
Yeah, his boss, who it turns out has been, like, we get in a really short sequence, a kind of really tossed off short sequence that it turns out, his EPA boss has been in the pocket of Orin Sr. this whole time, and you really think he could have, like, maybe not put Jack Taggart on this case, knowing how dogged and badass he is. But anyway, that's again trying to apply logic to the whole proceeding. So we'll move back to just the sequence.
Yeah. So then he's arrested too. For the death of his best friend, who now I don't even remember his name.
Frank. His name is Frank. He was very dear to Jack Taggart's heart. As we said at the start of the episode and at the start of the film, he literally says, "I appreciate your friendship."
Yeah.
But in another scene that mirrors On Deadly Ground, and I do want to just throw out the fun fact that in Spain this movie was released as On Deadly Ground too, apparently. But in another scene that mirrors on Deadly Ground, we get another fight scene in a bar. Kyle, do you want to take us through that one?
Isn't it in the casino?
No, we get before the casino. Okay. Before the casino, he visits Orin Jr.
We get some of the best music. We get Muddy Waters to lead us into the Orin Jr.'s hangout bar, where he's hitting a punching bag because I guess you work out in this bar. So
I was a bit confused about that as well. I was like, what? Like, I mean, most bars have like pool tables, but I've never seen a bar with a punching bag. Anyway.
Apparently, when you're the local town sleaze, you do that. But so Seagal storms in to get wanting Orin Jr. to testify against his dad, basically, but fights the pimple guy and the various thugs that are left. And there's that particular moment, I know Craig kind of mentioned it earlier, where one of those guys I think he just gets his head slammed into the pool table, but then he's sitting on the ground missing several teeth. And you can kind of tell, like, they hired a guy who was actually missing some teeth or something, could take his teeth out. And that's also the guy who's like, you're going to have to do more than that. Like he's already missing like 4 teeth, and he's like, he's not giving up.
No, he's not. I think like Sims gets his nose smashed again for like the 3rd time in this movie.
And then
Seagal, because he even says, "Oh no," he's like, or something.
Yeah, I think I think we do get like a little bit more ADR in this scene as well of another guy who's like, "Oh, my jaw."
But then Seagal takes Orin Jr.'s boxing gloves because he doesn't want anything to do with Seagal and just starts slapping him in the face with them and just says, you're going to testify. And I don't care whether you do it to save your ass or you do it because it's the right thing. And he says, yes, sir.
Which mirrors the scene in the bar in the on Deadly Ground where he also gives out an inspirational beating that changes a guy's heart.
You're right. Although nothing can top Mike's star.
No. Like, I mean, that scene's on a whole different level,
That may be one of my most favorite scenes from all of that I've watched for this podcast.
Oh, the what does it take to change the essence of a man scene? Oh, it's amazing.
If anything, by the end of this season, I'll have that, and that'll be my key.
Well, yeah, if anything, you'll have the answer. What does it take to change a man, Craig?
Time. Is it time?
It's time. It's time, yes. He needs time.
But this movie's not over. No,
it's not. No. It's not over because then we head to the casino, and I've got to mention that he pops up in an earlier scene. Oh, I've just remembered, the thing where I was talking about the golf thing, and then I was like, no, I've written that later. What was I talking about with More Fun with Orin Sr.? That was a scene much earlier on in the movie where he's just sleazily looking at and talking about some strippers on stage. And and the reason I remember this scene is because it's the first time we see Ernie Lively's character, and Ernie Lively had a brief cameo in Hard to Kill, and he also has a brief cameo here. And and the reason I'm mentioning this is because Ernie Lively turns back up again, and Seagal does his classic shtick of just abusing bouncers and doormen in various amusing ways.
Yes, he does. And he also abuses the bouncer doorman and then walks into the place, and everyone just lets him walk into the place.
That's true. I did feel like they were missing a trick here though, because he just walks past Ernie Lively and his crew, and then he comes across other bouncers. And he's questioned, he's obviously got morals because he's questioned by one bouncer who clearly chickens out immediately. And the guy who chickens out, he doesn't actually beat up. But the guy who's like, oh, you can shove that warrant up your ass, he beats up that guy and then 2 other guys. But the card game that Orin Sr. is playing is the bouncers are in front of this kind of glass enclosure that the card game's happening at. And I was like, well, he's got to throw them through the glass and then get to Orin Sr. at the pool, the card table. Every time I watch this movie, I always think well, he's got to, and it doesn't happen.
I know, it's wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he beats up those guys, and then what does he do, Craig?
Well, he goes, because since he has the warrant and everything, he goes to arrest Orin Sr., but Orin Sr., he has a gun, which I guess because he's, rich people don't want to go to jail, so he'd rather take his own life, or he'd rather, I know that, yes, Seagal shoots him in the shoulder, Taggart shoots him in the shoulder, and then arrests him and takes him into custody.
Yes, although, some of Seagal's kind of dickish rudeness is very funny, but again, this scene kind of goes in quite a. If you think about the scene long enough, it goes in quite a dark direction because, so Orin Sr. tries to shoot Seagal with a gun he's got hidden under the table. But then Seagal takes that out of his hand immediately, and then he says to the other guys, the other agents who are with him, to arrest Orin Sr. And then Orin Sr. pulls out another gun that he has in his sleeve which I feel like he should have pulled out the first time, but let's not question that. And while they're sitting at the table, Seagal is like, and that's when Seagal like shoots him in the shoulder. But before that, when they're sitting at the table, Seagal is like kind of taunting him by saying basically Orin Sr. is like, oh well, there's no women in prison, and then Seagal's like, well, I know this guy Tyrone, he'll fix you right up. And then after he shoots him, he says like, oh, maybe I shot your shoulder because I'm a bad shot. Or maybe I just really want you to meet Tyrone, which suggests that the Seagal is deliberately fitting this guy up to be raped in prison, which is real dark.
Yeah,
pretty dark.
But
it's all brushed off as just fun laugh time.
I mean, yeah, same with the idea of, molestation. A lot of that stuff is all just glossed over.
Yeah, it's just real glossed over. And, again, I suppose you're not supposed to think about it too hard, but like, if you think about that for a second, you're just like, wait, he's deliberately arranging? I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. That doesn't seem like I thought you were like the moral crusader guy. I'm confused. Anyway, moving on, we get the reunion with Sarah, the conclusion to the romance that we're all deeply invested in. Hurrah!
Yay!
Nothing, Craig. You could have even done a fake hurrah, like me and Kyle did, like a kind of ironic, But no, you were so uninvested that you couldn't get ironic about it.
He hasn't gotten over the bees.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I gave a little Seagal brings her back more bees too, Craig.
Yeah.
You gotta be excited that's what that was. I didn't know what that was. I was like, what are these crates?
It's the bees. There's replacement bees.
I thought it might be the toxic waste or something. Like I took this out of the environment for you.
It should have been. It should have utilized all the honey that he bought, and the bees were actually he was.
The honey that's never referenced again. Yeah.
But then we get the final scene, which I think is the best moment of Harry Dean Stanton playing the guitar on his nice new porch and then dancing.
Oh, that's real fun.
Because don't forget, it takes place in Appalachia, so you need good old porch dancing.
You're right. Well, I like just that Harry Dean swoops in at the end of the movie to just be like, I'm still a good actor, though, and I can play the guitar.
Yeah. Well, and his whole character was like, I was a crucial part of the plot.
He sent a letter that was heavily discussed before it was mentioned by him in the midpoint in the movie.
But they he resorted to the background of just like giving nods occasionally or stuff like that. That was the rest of the movie with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like Kyle, I'm just I was amused by the fact that it's like, how are we going to end this movie? We're just going to end it with Harry Dean Stanton tap dancing and then playing a little song on the guitar. Okay, cool.
Balance has been restored.
Do you want to mirror the start of the movie by having a montage of depression era black and white photos from Appalachia running over the credits? Yeah, sure. Sounds like a good idea. And that's what we get. And just another country song playing over the credits. I don't think the end credits song, I'm not sure I don't think that's one of the ones co-written by Seagal.
No, it was one of the country stars I actually know. It was John Prine.
Oh, okay. Oh, we forgot to mention in the casino scene there was another country music star cameo, a guy called Travis Tritt, who I'm not aware of his work, but I thought we'd cover all the country music star cameos that are in the movie. That stunned everybody into silence. Mr. Travis Tritt, well done for stunning everybody into silence. Let's quickly cut to best and worst. We'll go with Craig first.
Okay. So the best in terms of, I'll say that kind of shootout scene. I will talk about that with Randy Travis, and then also I don't know. I actually think that there were moments with like Stephen Lang that I wanted to see more of him. I would have, I don't know, if the character worked, as normal characters do, I think, it could have been a good arc. But so yeah, those are my positives. My negatives, I guess, are just kind of the stereotype Appalachia stuff. It just kind of got grueling for what, I don't know, bogged down and everything. I just wanted to get to the action with this movie for some reason.
And Kyle?
My favorite part is to go off that shooting scene, specifically just shooting that flare out of the guy's hand and then shooting the flare out in midair was, the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I feel like there should have been more Harry Dean Stanton, but probably I think the thing I was thinking as it was coming to an end was they should have just combined the Kristofferson and his son and just had one villain.
Yeah,
it would have saved a little bit of time on the movie and like made a little bit more sense.
Yeah, I think so. I suppose for me, like, I think my favorite part is actually the same as yours, Kyle. The shooting of the flare and then shooting the flare out. I think that was really fun. If I was to pick another moment, I did like I did quite enjoy the lumberjack lumberyard fight, just because of the snarkiness of like Seagal when he's like he gets a chip in the wood and he just then punches that guy out, and then the ADR thing of like I've never been hit so hard in my life, like that really amused me. I suppose. Like for a film that has obviously had like big edits in like some of its action sequences, there is probably a bit too much kind of in the way of padding of just like scenes that are just like kind of this is here. We're doing kind of romance now, or we're doing kind of heavy exposition. But overall, like I think this like it's not a good movie, but I have a soft spot for it. I think it's kind of fun, like in a very kind of cheat. It's a total cornball movie. Like it's possibly and like Seagal is clearly trying to soften his image a little, and it's like it's done in this kind of really cheesy style, but I think that makes it quite funny. But like you say, like the kind of heavy stereotyping of like kind of hillbilly folk gets kind of like absurd, the levels it goes to. But yeah, that's my kind of. Is anybody got any kind of final thoughts? Like, so would you rank this? Where would you rank this, Craig, in terms of the ones you saw? So you've joined us for On Deadly Ground and Under Siege 2, The Glimmer Man, and now this.
I would actually, I don't know if it was just since I've been watching these now kind of back to back, or well not, but each week. But yeah. I'd almost say that I'd rank it's like that and Glimmer Man are kind of neck and neck for taking that last spot. It depends, because there's certain Glimmer Man is so schizophrenic, but Brian Cox in it is hammy enough that it has that kind of fun element to it. So I think it might get a notch down, but yeah, they're neck and neck.
Oh, okay. So you place this?
I'd place this at the bottom, because I think
you'd place this at the bottom, right? Because yes. I was confused, because I was thinking like I thought you were saying you'd place this at the top. I thought you were because I was confused, because I was like, wait, you think the Glimmer Man's better than Under Siege 2? Like, right? Okay, I was confused. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, On Deadly Ground for me takes the top spot, just because of I think coming into it not really having the full awareness of Seagal movies, having seen the original Under Siege and stuff like that, but coming into it with that. Mm-hmm. Just having it so ridiculous was and laugh out loud kind of funny, unintentionally, was I think is why it takes a top spot. If I was to rewatch them again, Under Siege 2 is definitely way better, but for the
Under
sake of
Siege 2,
this.
yeah. Of the four, Under Siege 2 is the best made film. I would argue that this is the second best made film of the four. Yeah. I mean,
but this one lacked Seagal being talked about by other people about how amazing he is. There was no like secret identity thing. I felt like,
it does miss the kind of dossier kind of background dump. Like there is one brief scene where Orin Sr. kind of says like, "Oh, I had my men kind of look into him," and but it's not done to the full glorious extent that is done in the other movies. Like the classic Casey fucking Ryback scene in Under Siege 2, or like basically all of On Deadly Ground, where it's mentioned like in every like second scene.
Yeah.
But that's our thoughts on Fire Down Below. Yeah, you can write in with your thoughts. Tell us what you think we got right, what you think we got wrong. And also rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, basically wherever you stick your podcasts into your ear holes. But then that is all for this episode. It just leaves me to thank once again my co-host Craig Draheim.
Thank you for having me.
And Kyle Hintz.
Great to be here.
And that's it. Please do join us again next time, when we will be covering the final episode in our Seagal season. Yes, we'll be looking at the film that most people think is one of Seagal's most boring films. Super exciting. It's 1998's The Patriot. So join us for that one.